Right, we are back with possibly the biggest and best resin art hack there's ever, ever been. Watch. See that? This is absolutely mind blowing, guys. And again, you could turn that into a pendant shaker. Many of you have seen me playing around with hairspray, and we have taken this one step further. This is absolutely mind blowing. This is going to open up such a huge variation of different techniques. It's just going to spiral. I mean, this one, guys, it is incredible. It really is. So I've been playing around with this only since yesterday off camera, because I just wasn't in a filming mood yesterday for like putting my voice into things. I've had a bit of a sore throat, so I concentrated on a couple of my other platforms with short videos, and kind of the videos are going viral. It is people are just absolutely mind blown, because people from the shakers, people that make resin shakers, resin jewelry. This should hopefully open opportunities for bigger projects. But I'm going to show you where I'm at. We're going to work together as the resin community does on this channel, and we are going to explore different revenues. I want people tagging me in their stuff that they've done with this. I want to see what you're doing with this, because again, it is just, there's going to be a huge variation of different things that can be done with this. So I'm going to take you back to my very first attempt at this yesterday, and then I'm going to show you where it went from that idea to where we're at. Like I said, today it's only been 24 hours almost, and I've already come really far with this. So for this experiment, I'm going to be showing you with UV resin. This is the Resin Rockers Clear Hard Type. We're also going to take it one step further. I've not tried it yet. We're going to try epoxy in this video as well, because so many people are asking if it would work with epoxy. We are going to find out in this video, and all your questions, all your answers are going to be answered. All your questions are going to be answered. So all I'm doing is just making a blank. That's all I'm doing. If you've got an existing one, you don't need to do this. And then I'm just going to give that a cure under my beast. Now we can now take that out. Now it has cured. And I'm just going to rest mine on this mini pyramid mold and give it a spray with my hairspray. So this is the brand that I am using. It is a firm hold. Now I think this is important. What we want is a kind of a firm to strong, because that's going to give the best coating. If you're using like a #1, I don't think it's going to create. What it does is it creates a film, and that film creates a barrier. You'll see, this is absolutely mind-blowing. You'll see it, and I'll explain it more as we go. So I'm just going to give that a coating all over and just let that dry. Now I'll also explain, because you could be thinking, oh, you could do this with release spray. I'll get to that also. Whilst that is drying, I'm just going to fill up this large heart cavity in my mold, just to allow any bubbles to rise, and I can pop those before the next step. Now you do need to make sure that hairspray is 100% dry before the next step, otherwise it's just not going to work. And I've just realized I've put too much resin in, so I'm just going to suck some of that out with my bottle again. So now I'm going to take my hairspray heart, and I am going to pop it on the surface of that uncured resin, and it will float. And I can then just position that to where I want it to be. And again, I'm just going to give that a normal cure under my lamp. Try and get it as centered as possible. That will do. Okay, that has had a couple of minutes under my lamp. Now with UV resin, it still has some flexibility when you demold it. And you'll see, watch. See that? This is absolutely mind-blowing, guys. It really is. So because it's still got that flexibility, it's easier to demold the resin from the resin. I might not have covered the side here 100%, but it will come out. There you go. It is absolutely incredible. So now we have a shell to make a shaker with. And you'll see that it's kind of, there's like a film inside. That is the hairspray. That will rub off or clean out. But there we have a perfect shell for a shaker. And we can reuse that again and again and again. Now, some people in the other videos mentioned maybe put something on the back, like a hook or something, a screw, so we can easily pull that out. Now, if your resin has cooled down and you're struggling to get it out, you can pop this in some hot water, which will give the resin some flex again, so you can then pop it out. If you're still struggling, try and spray a little bit of mold release spray down the sides, but it will come out. I'm hoping. Remember guys, this is still experimental stages. Now, when I tried it without the hairspray and with my mold release spray, what happened was this, and that was dry. It created like this quite a large amount of bubbles when I took it out. So the release spray didn't do what the hairspray did at all. Actually, most of that kind of haziness was where I didn't clean my mold out. That's on the surface. So I promise you it does come out crystal clear. There you go, I've just given that a quick buff up and you can see just how clear that is. So we have the shell to make a shaker. We have possibilities, you know, you could do so much with this idea with different shapes as well. So where I went from this is a viewer said, what about different kinds of shapes? So what about something that's more 3D and has some depth, like this resin skull that I made a while ago? Watch, this is insane. Again, furrow coat all over. And because it has that depth of the eye sockets and the nose, I'm just going to suck some of it out with some tissue just to make sure it dries a little bit quicker and it's not just going to puddle, because I do need it 100% dry. Like I said, otherwise it's just not going to work. As always, massive shout out to my channel members, anyone who's bought me a coffee or a super thanks, all my subs. We are smashing it. We are flying through the subs now. It is crazy. It is free. Hit that button for me. And if you're worried, just feel free just to double ensure once it's dry, give it a second coat and let that dry. Whilst that's drying, I know I promised you the video on this piece. Guys, this is kind of taken priority over that at the moment, but I promise you I will bring you that tutorial. But I have one more absolutely insane, I love that word, absolutely insane technique with hairspray coming as well. I might launch that one Sunday, depending on how this one goes, because I could come up with something else that kind of spirals from this, that's going to be just as incredible, but we'll see. But I will definitely bring you that tutorial on this very, very soon. So for the skull piece, I'm going to be testing out this new Resin Rockers mold. It has the 4 large, these are the oval shapes that I normally use, but there's 4 of them on this mold. There's 4 medium and there's 4 small. I helped Resin Rockers, Mandy over at Resin Rockers asked me for some ideas for molds, and I said we need something that's got more of these ovals in, and they've made this awesome mold, so I'm going to give that a test. But I'm going to skip most of it because you've kind of seen what we do. I'm going to pour my resin, float the skull, but I'll show you that part because that part is important, and then I'll show you me popping it out. Okay guys, so what's going to happen if I flip that upside down in my UV resin? What do you think is going to happen? Yep, bubbles in the recessed areas. So I'm just going to eliminate that issue by dropping some resin in those areas before submerging it. So I've just filled in the eyes and the nose. I'm probably still going to get a couple of bubbles, especially around the cheekbones, but I'm not overly fussed. So I can now place that into the resin and again just position it, and I'm going to give that a couple of minutes under my lamp also. Now, with something like this, because the back of the skull is kind of opaque, we need to also cure it from the underneath. Just be careful when you're doing it this way. I don't want to flip my mold because there's going to be uncured resin and that could create bubbles. So if by flipping my mold, it's going to create a mess. But by doing it this way, just make sure there's no lights aimed at your eyes in any way because it's dangerous. But yeah, I'm just curing it for a minute on the underside as well. So to make this one easier, I did get my one out yesterday with no issues. I am just going to install an eyelet on the back. Didn't do this before because I didn't want it kind of creating any issues with the kind of balancing it in the resin. So I'm just going to install this eyelet just to make it easier for each time I do it now. I'll screw that in. So what I should now be able to do is just grab that eyelet and just begin to pull it, and it will begin to separate. There we go. So there we have. It's absolutely incredible. It's insane. Imagine the Halloween possibilities. And again, you could turn that into a pendant shaker. Fill that with the solution and put the film on, and then you can back it and just seal everything in with UV resin. But it's just phenomenal. And I can then just use that over and over again. It has the eyelet on the back now, so I can just, it's like inlays without the silicone. So I then did that, and then I thought, what about something that's not, I don't know what this is made out of. It's a button I got from a craft shop, I think last year or even the year before. I've never really found a use for it, but I thought, what if that worked? And again, I sprayed it with hairspray. I gave it 2 coats. It's got some quite intricate details there. It shouldn't have worked. When it comes to demolding this, I was really expecting some uncured resin, some kind of inhibition where the light can't penetrate through this solid object. I was expecting it to be uncured, but look, it peeled off a little bit of the paint where I didn't spray 100% of the piece, but that's fine. It's just a cheap button, and it does chip away. I've just not cleaned it up properly yet. But imagine that, you could decorate that however you want. You could seal that again. You could make a shaker just from that. It's insane. But the big question is, will it work with epoxy? Let's get mixing. I'm just going to mix up a small amount of the collab resin, and I'm just going to repeat everything that you've seen, and there's no point me showing it. I'll show you when we demold the demold. I might as well show it. So I've sprayed the skull, the same one that I just used for the UV version. I'm hoping that eyelet on the back, I suppose I could actually remove the eyelet to prevent any counterbalance issues. I might actually do that because the hole's already there and I can just screw the eyelet back in, can't I? So I've removed the eyelet, and I'm just going to repeat. Hopefully it won't sink. And I just need to now wait until tomorrow. Hopefully I can get to it in time before it sets solid hard. It will make it a lot easier. Oh no, I forgot to do the eyes. Oh, I knew there was something. I kept saying to myself, put the resin in the eyes and the nose. And I forgot, and I can see through the bubbles. So this one's going to look a little bit strange. If I fish that out now, it's just going to make a mess. I might do another one. I've got another one going. I won't forget this time. So what we could do especially with the epoxy version, if we wanted to, is go even further and fill that with liquid silicone and then cure it. And then we've got a silicone inlay to use, and then we can reproduce as many of those as we want. The trouble is with pouring liquid silicone into UV resin, sometimes the UV resin can poison the silicone and it doesn't cure, and that creates something called current inhibition. But with epoxy, it should be fine. So that is also an epic option. And there we have the second one. I'll see you for the demold. Let's make something with this. I'm not a pro when it comes to stuff like this. I know there's certain kinds of ingredients you need to use. I'm just going to wing it for the video, so don't judge me. I'm going to be using some coloured water and some baby oil. I've just got this, just a bit of packaging plastic. I'm going to cut that slightly bigger than the skull, but obviously it needs to stay inside that oval shape. Doesn't have to be perfect. You won't see it hopefully, but there you go. And now, before I glue that on with some UV resin, I'm going to drill a hole, and that will be where we can squeeze in our solution. Just like that. Then, just using some UV resin, I'm going to just go around the outside of the skull and just cover the whole area, because you don't want any gaps. I learnt that yesterday when I was squeezing in my solution and it started coming out the sides. You've got to start somewhere, haven't you? Now I can place on my film, make sure the hole's not covered by the resin, make sure there's no gaps where any of the solution can come out, and give that a cure. So for the solution, I'm just going to add some water into this mixing cup, and then I'm going to add a few drops of red alcohol ink, like so, and just give that a thorough stir. And in this cup I'm going to add my baby oil. Then I'm going to add a few drops at a time, if it wants to, of the coloured water into the oil. And you'll see it kind of separates and keeps like a blobby form. And just keep going until I'm happy. I think that'll do. I don't know, I've never done this before. So you'll see as we stir that up, kind of multiplies into lots of small little balls of colour. I don't want to say the word because my video might get flagged. You can say it in the comments. So that shouldn't cling to the resin, I'm hoping, and it shouldn't stain the inside of the skull. I can now transfer that into a small needle tip bottle ready to squirt in. Now is the bit that I'm not entirely sure on. Do I need a bubble in there or not? So I'm inserting that into the hole that we drilled, and then I'm just going to squirt the solution inside. Any mess we can clean up afterwards. I'm not worried about that. So I don't know whether we're supposed to leave an air bubble. I'm just going to clean up around that hole so I can seal it. Again, a small blob of UV resin just over the top, and use my flashlight to cure it. And just some alcohol on my tissue. I'm just making sure there's no baby oil left around the rest of the areas, so that the final layer of UV resin is going to bond perfectly. And I'm just going to finish the whole back off with I just drizzled that down the side with a layer of white UV resin. Right, so Did the epoxy work? I can't see why not, but we'll find out. What I have just done is I've gone and bought a different brand of hairspray. Again, it's a firm hold and it worked exactly the same way. I've had feedback from someone else as well. A brand called Elnet also works. Again, guys, you're gonna need to come back to this video and let us know in the comments if you've tried it, so we can kind of rule out certain brands if some don't work. And obviously it's going to help others if you let us know what has worked. Okay, so let's go with the one which I know I messed up because my epoxy was very bubbly as well because I was being impatient with the mixing. So let's see if I can do it without the hook in the back. I don't know. It's tricky. It's because the shape of it as well doesn't help. I'm going to put the hook in. Right, I'm really hoping this has worked. My hook's kind of not very strong now because I've already bent it. I think that's going to snap. It doesn't appear to be. It is coming away, but it's not as good as the UV version, I must say. But it is separating, you can see. Someone mentioned about putting alcohol down the sides, but I want to see if I can get that out without. You can see that flex that I've still got on the epoxy, which is definitely helping. I can't see me being able to do this without that flex. I think the other one's going to be even trickier because of that. The eye sockets are infilled. It's not really coming out, which is a huge shame. Maybe I needed to coat it more. Come on. So I think I need to play around with the epoxy version a little bit more because this isn't. See, it's like it's bonded at the front. Yeah, I want to get it out, but I'm damaging the epoxy 100%. Yeah, look, it's not worked, which is a big shame. But it's still, with the UV version, it has gone back to shape, but it's damaged. That's a shame. Right. Maybe I sprayed more on this one. I don't know. I'm going to have to drill and attach another eyelet. As always, give the video. See, these eyelets aren't very strong anyway. It's just snapped inside. As always, give the video a thumbs up, drop me a comment if you haven't subbed, hit that button for me. I think if you're going to try this with epoxy, a release spray would work better. The reason why the release spray doesn't work with UV resin is because of the heat. I think this needs exploring with the release spray for epoxy. I think that would work. This is just not working at all, guys. Nowhere near as good as the UV hack anyway. But I'm gonna really try and get this out. It's a shame because I can't really use these skull pieces again. Yeah, don't try this with epoxy because it's just going to be a waste. You can see it's just not wanting to come out. It's going to rip. Yeah, look. No. Doesn't work at the moment with epoxy, which is a massive shame. But with the UV resin, we can do it, which is incredible. I even did, this is like a a fake starfish. It didn't quite fit. It's pulled off some of the colour, but again, it did come off. So UV resin only at the moment. And someone also said I did make these shakers, and you can see that the skull is highlighted mainly by the red that's inside. But somebody said to dust before popping the back film on and filling, dust the inside of the skull with some mica powder, just a small amount. It won't come off apparently, and that will highlight all of the features in whatever you're doing. Let's see, I made 2, but they are really cool. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed that one. I think this is incredible, not for epoxy, but for UV resin anyway at the moment. But I will work out the epoxy version. I'll do it. I know I will. Hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Come back and let us know how you're getting on with it, and I will see you for the next one. Bye for now.